Hello there, Liesel Teversham here, and I want to say a few words about the term self-sabotage. Do you use that term, or have you heard it used by other people? Or have you done something and then somebody said to you, "Oh, you're self-sabotaging"? I have quite a few ideas about this word, and I want to make sure that you understand what it is and what it isn't, and perhaps bring in a more useful perspective that I think can help us on our way forward. So first of all, I'd just like you to tune in and get in touch with what it feels like when either you say to yourself, "Oh, I'm self-sabotaging," or "I'm sabotaging myself," or perhaps when somebody else has said to you, "Oh, you self-sabotaging." When I tune into that for myself, I must say it doesn't really feel very good. It feels like I'm being blamed, like I'm doing something wrong. I'm supposed to be doing it in a different way, and I'm not getting it right. That's all what comes up for me when I hear the term self-sabotage, especially when it's used kind of against me. First, let's just chat a little bit about what self-sabotage, what we mean when we talk about self-sabotage. So it is the term that we use when we describe what happens when we say we want to do one thing, but in reality we're doing something the opposite. For instance, say I've decided I want to lose 20 pounds, and somebody notices that I actually go off to the tea room and I have a biscuit with my tea. That's not really going to help me to reach my goal of losing 20 pounds, but I find myself doing this without a second thought. And somebody might come and say, "Oh, you're self-sabotaging." So that is what self-sabotage, that's what we mean when we talk about this term. So the thing is, though, that I believe the term self-sabotage is really not the best term to use in this instance, because what I believe self-sabotage, or what happens really, when we make a goal and we say, "I want to choose this thing and I want to go in that direction, I'm going to lose 20 pounds." That goal we usually make with our conscious brain. We call it the prefrontal cortex, the part of our brain that sits here behind our forehead. And that is the logical, rational part of our brain that makes decisions, it can do logical things, it makes it's rational thinking, decisions, it sets goals, and so on. And that part of the brain is operational, believe it or not, about 5% of the time. The other 95% of the time, what happens is our subconscious mind is at work about 95% of the time. So when we make a goal, because we're making it with our conscious mind, we have often forgotten that there are many parts and voices in our subconscious that we haven't consulted when we made that goal. So the conscious part of our brain can easily say, "I'm going to lose 25 pounds because we really might want to. The clothes no longer fit. We feel irritated. We don't like what we see in the mirror and it's uncomfortable." So it's a great goal. And that is the part of the brain that needs to make goals. However, if we haven't given all the parts of our brain a chance to say what they think and feel about this wonderful goal, they're going to think and feel those things anyway, but because you haven't consciously listened to them, they're going to do that surreptitiously under the surface. And they're going to behave in the way that they want to behave anyway. You just haven't listened to them. So it is truly my opinion that there's nothing, self-sabotage doesn't happen. The truth is you haven't listened to all the parts of you before you made this decision. So a bit of homework maybe for you to do during this week is to think about a goal that you've set, or something that you want to do, a new habit that you want to form, something new that you want to start that's not yet that easy for you. And to think about all the places where there's a yes but in your brain or mind, where you think, I'll give you an example. I want to lose these 20 pounds. And a voice might say, yes, but I really enjoy my cookies. I really enjoy having that biscuit with my tea. I'm going to feel like I'm losing out. That is a part of you that's in the unconscious, the subconscious, that needs to be heard and listened to. Because if you do not, believe me, it is going to hamper your progress forward on this goal. Another part of you might say, yes, I hear that you want to lose weight, but I really enjoy the company that I have while I eat my biscuit or my piece of cake, while I have the conversations with friends around this cup of tea. What will I do if other people are eating their piece of cake and I sit there and look at them and I don't feel like having a carrot? That is another part of you that's going to hamper your progress forward. Maybe another example is, I really feel soothed and comforted when I eat that piece of chocolate cake. There is something to chocolate actually that helps us feel good. So if I say to my body and mind now, you know what, you're never going to be able, you can't have chocolate or chocolate cake anymore, there's a part of me that's going to stand up and say, oh, right. And where do you think I'm going to get that sense of comfort that the chocolate currently gives me? So can you hear that all these parts of you and all these voices need to be heard, need to be taken into consideration before we make a goal? Otherwise, they're going to stand up and do what they need to do anyway, because these parts of us in our subconscious mind are very strong and they are there for a very good reason. It was a part that got born in the past somewhere that is trying to do a job for you, that is trying to perform a certain role. And just because we think it should be doing something differently, well, that doesn't actually matter, because this part has picked up a certain role for you somewhere in the past, and it believes it's doing the best it can right now. So that's what I wanted to cover just very briefly in this video. And in another one, I'll talk briefly about how to work with these parts then, because obviously these voices are here, these parts are here, and it doesn't mean that we can never set goals because we've got all these voices to consider. Yes, we need to set goals and we need to go forward on our way. The point I wanted to make today is to stop calling it self-sabotage, because that has, for me, a really negative connotation. It's like, look what you go and do. You say you want to do thing, but you do a completely different thing. It feels a little bit blaming. And when I feel blamed or like I've done something wrong, chances are I'm going to grab for another piece of chocolate cake, because now I feel bad, and that's very soothing and emotionally comforting for me, instead of going towards my goal of losing 20 pounds. So for us to just start being really mindful of the words we use when we describe our own behavior. And then in the next post or video, I will discuss a little bit about how we can work with these voices or parts inside of us that need to be heard. And we always listen to them with kindness and with care, and not with a kick under the butt or let me boot you out voice. I don't want to hear you. That's not the way to work with them. If you think of a screaming child having a tantrum in the middle of a shopping center, the minute that mom picks this child up and hears them and say, there, I'm sorry you feel that way, and I see that you feel bad at the moment. When mom does that, the screaming child will calm down. If mom doesn't hear it, it might need to keep on screaming to be heard. And that's exactly what happens to these voices or parts of us that don't feel heard, and therefore they drive our behavior in a very unconscious way. So, just a little bit of homework for you, perhaps, is just to start noticing where you say you want to do one thing and you find yourself acting in the opposite direction, not being very helpful to yourself. Start changing the language. Don't use the word self-sabotage. That makes us feel bad and like, oh, I'm doing this wrong. Start wondering, what voice is it that I haven't heard? What part of me is it that I haven't yet listened to? And just start noticing what that voice might need to say to you, might want to say to you. Just start noticing and start jotting down some ideas and notes about what you find and what you notice. And then in the next post, I will offer some ideas about how we can work with that. Thank you so much for listening, for being here, and I will chat to you soon again in the next post.